All right, guys. Look, have you ever heard this? You're rolling too hard. If you've heard that, you're probably rolling too hard. In jiu-jitsu is a funny thing because we have the need to train live with people, and it's the only way you get better, quite honestly. You get better from drilling, of course, but the only way you truly get better is to test what it is that you've drilled. And to test it, you need to roll. So the question becomes, how is it possible to roll too hard? If I want to test my techniques against a fully resisting opponent, how if they're fully resisting 100%, how am I rolling too hard? Guys, my name is Bill Jones. I'm the head instructor of top-level martial arts in beautiful downtown Cuyahoga Falls. And today, I'm going to answer that question. I'm a black belt under Master Pedro Sauer. You're watching Professor's Corner. All right, guys, so how do you roll too hard? What does that mean? I'm going to give you a little story. I remember back in, I don't even remember the year, but I was a purple belt, a pretty new purple belt, and I was rolling Master Sauer, and man, I was like, man, I'm going to hit this move, I'm going to hit that move, I'm going to try this move, and I get done with it, and my instructor, Tony Rinaldi, he looks at me and he says, "Why are you trying to kill this man?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not rolling hard. And he looks at me, he's like, "You're dripping with sweat." He's not. You're rolling way too hard. Like, he's 58 years old or 50-some years old at the time. He goes, "You're a 20-some-year-old kid. Why are you trying to kill him?" And I'm like I didn't even recognize, even as a purple belt, that I was rolling way too hard. And what's that mean? So rolling too hard is when you are basically just a try-hard. You're just trying to tap everybody at all costs. And why don't you want to do that? There are times to do it. Don't get me wrong. Let's be real clear. You go to a tournament, it's time to be a try-hard. Win. And maybe during your prep for tournaments, it's time to try hard a little bit. Win. But most of your jiu-jitsu time should not be spent trying that hard. It should be trying to learn timing. And I think the problem becomes that when we confuse the idea of timing with speed, and those are not the same thing. And you get away with it for a long time. That's the problem. Especially if you're fast or maybe you're strong, you get away with it. You can say, "Oh, I'm just going to move quick, boom." But that's not the right thing. You'll know the right thing because when you feel someone who feels like they're not even trying and they're still beating you, they've got timing. When you're rolling someone who's breathing heavy and very sweaty and working hard and grunting and everything, they're just using muscle and speed and attributes. So the question becomes, how do you know which one is you? The answer is you won't until you purposely don't try so hard. I've seen this thing, this pohada, and I was going to be honest, when I was in Brazil, I literally heard no one say it. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying where I was, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Petropoulos, no one said it. No one was like, "Oh, pohada." It didn't happen. So I don't know where that came from, but it certainly wasn't in my lineage. But, and it's not that you shouldn't work hard. You can still get a great workout. You're not supposed to just lay there like a dead fish either. But when you work too hard, here's what's going to happen. You're probably not going to make it to black belt. If all you do is try to roll as hard as you can every time. If that's your only method of getting better, you're not going to make it to black belt because you're tying yourself too intently with the tap and not as much with skill acquisition. And the way you acquire skills is through drilling. And I'm not talking about like kata-ing the moves, right? Like people always say, "Oh yeah, those guys just drill." Or I've heard like a lot of people saying that like they think drill is just doing kata with the moves. And that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is how professional sports teams practice 99% of the time. They don't go out there and play full games. I've talked about this in the past. So when you roll too hard, you're going to miss the forest for the trees. You're going to depend on, because you're in a high stress situation, only the things that you're good at. And you need to back up and try new things. That's how you get better, is to try new stuff and try to do it at the right timing, the right movements, that kind of thing. So rolling too hard, how can you manage not to roll too hard? Maybe you don't mean to, but people are telling you do anyway. The first thing is slow down, and then make specific goals. Say, okay, well, today I'm just going to try these 4 moves, whatever. Maybe I'm gonna make sure, or even say I'm going to get put into side control as many times as I can and escape as many times as I can. So you're putting yourself as a deficit to train at a deficit so that you learn how to, maybe you are still rolling hard, but you're not doing it on top of someone. This is really important, because if you do this every day and you just roll hard every single day, you're going to get hurt. It's going to happen. And over time, that's going to wear on you. I remember when I was in my 20s, I didn't notice it. Like, I got hurt every once in a while, but I trained anyway. I felt fine. I would go jogging afterwards, all this stuff. As you get to 40, 50, 60, those injuries are going to catch up with you. And things are going to start to snap. You're going to start to hurt knees. You're going to start to hurt shoulders. You're going to start to hurt elbows. This is the life of an athlete. And when those things happen, they're not going to heal as quickly. And it's going to be weird. So you need to be very, very, very careful about that, because doing too much of that will keep you from training jiu-jitsu. And that's the whole goal, right? Is to train jiu-jitsu forever. If all you want to do is be an athlete for a couple years, I mean, find a sport that makes money. Why would you pick jiu-jitsu? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, let's be honest. There's like no money in competing jiu-jitsu, or very little, unless you're really high levels, Gordon Ryan, Andre Galvão. If you're up there, of course they're making some money. I don't know how much, probably not as much as a professional football player, but they're making money at it at least. But if that's not you, then you have no reason to go crazy in there. And a lot of people I've heard, a lot of them are police officers, and they'll be like, I've got to train hard here so that when I'm on the streets, and I'm using this, I can use it. I know it works. I get that. I respect that idea, but you also need to be able to do your job, right? So if you train too hard all the time being the key, too hard all the time, then what's going to happen is you're going to get injured, and now you're not going to be able to do your job. And I think that's worse than I don't want to say worse, but I mean, how are you supposed to get any confidence in anything if you're injured? You have a tough job. I get it. Military, same thing. You have a tough job. So you need to train smart, train hard 1 day a week. And when I say roll hard, I mean 100%. The rest of it can be 60, 70, 80%. It's the same thing when you get on a treadmill. When you get on a treadmill or run or whatever, professional runners, people who do this for a living, they don't run 100% go the whole time. It looks like they do because they're good at it and they're conditioned and they've trained for a long time. But they do not train that way. They work in a heart rate zone that is far less than the maximum heart rate that they can calculate. A generalized way to look at that is 220 minus your age. That's your theoretical maximum heart rate. It's not like you're going to keel over and die if you go above it. It's just kind of like the theoretical limit. And then you can take into account your resting heart rate, and you can work in a range of like 60 to 80% of that would be like hard training. Like if you're up at the 80% of your heart rate max, that's very, very hard training. Think about lifters. They don't 100% max every single day. They just don't do it because you're going to get injured. It's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. You really got to be careful with that. All right, guys, done talking about it. You're rolling too hard, figure it out. If your instructor's telling you you're rolling too hard, then you're rolling too hard. There's no like, oh, I'm not rolling too hard. You are. If your instructor, who is probably a black belt and been doing it 4 times as long as you, is telling you you're rolling too hard, then you're probably trying and rolling too hard. All right, guys. The next segment here, I'm going to talk about 5 details that I use to help me get arm bars. So I hope you like it. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment below. What do you think? Do you roll too hard? Have you ever heard that? Has your instructor ever told you that? And what'd you do to fix it, if you fixed it at all? Guys, I'll see you in a minute. Talk to you soon. All right, guys, so 5 tiny details. Going to talk about the armbar. I think it's a pretty popular technique. So I'm going to give you 5 details that I see a lot of people kind of miss as they train. Of course, your understanding of these details is going to be based completely on your experience level. So I'm going to be going from things that I think are pretty relatively beginner experience level and move from there. So Dustin's going to help me out. Thanks, Dustin. Just go ahead and lay down. We'll talk about it. There's a bunch of ways to get to armbar, but the first one we're going to talk about, and the one I'm going to present, is mostly just kind of a spinning armbar from side control. And I'll show this in a couple different ways. The first detail that I think that people mess up on is not paying attention to the arm you're not attacking. And I'll show you what I mean. So as I come in here, this arm right here is going to matter as I spin because I want it to contain his head ideally. So a lot of times guys will put their hands like right here on their forehead so that it creates this little frame, and I'll show you what I mean. So as I bring him up and spin around, I end up with his hand underneath my leg, and now he just pushes my leg off his head and he comes up out of there. All right? So let's look at that from the other side. So we're here. I've got his arm controlled. Don't even worry about it. Just be super relaxed. He's going to allow me to move because he knows he's going to escape. Boom, look, right there, pause. See? Before I even get a chance, he's already working his escape. And if I don't either see that or feel that, that's going to give me some problems. And the answer is very simple. You're just going to shift down and go into his armpit. No problem. So let's do it from this side again. So I'm on side control. I bring him up. Boom, I already feel the frame is in there. I feel it. So what do? As I turn, I bring my foot into his hip and then back into his armpit. So it ends up kind of there. And now I'm ready to start attacking. So that's detail number 1. Detail number 2 is where you catch the arm. Let's turn this way so I think our friends will see a little better. I think people catch the arm too much at the elbow, and I'll show you what I mean. We'll just go to this point. So you get either here, or maybe this foot's under, whatever variation you're using, and we end up here and his hands are together. See, this is the problem, and then you're pulling and pulling and pulling, and maybe even bring this foot in. But look, when I pull at the elbow joint, it's just putting pressure on his shoulder. It's not putting that much pressure on the hand itself. So he can hold this grip almost indefinitely, all right, because he feels it here equally. I need most of the pressure to be here. So when you grab it, it should be up high. Now there's almost nothing on the shoulder and everything's up here at the grip, okay? And I don't even want him to grip. So when I go into this and as I start moving, I pull him in. Right about here, I start sliding up so that I'm on the wrist. See, I'm high. Now put your hands together. He doesn't ever have that opportunity. It's already over. So that's the second detail. Catch up above the elbow instead of down here in the elbow where he's going to fold this in and grab. All right. Third detail I think is pretty common actually, and it is grabbing the leg. Lean toward the legs if you have the opportunity, because leaning toward the head might break his grip, but the issue is it's easy for him to hitchhike or escape. So I'll just show you what I mean. So I bring him up, I step over, boom, get the leg. Now he can't roll away from me. All right? Pretty good position right here. Detail number 4, we might as well do while we're right here. If this foot is, let me switch here. If this foot is above the shoulder, bite in hard. Okay? Don't just let your leg be lackadaisical. If it's down here, he brings his hand underneath it, he gets out. Okay? Go back. If it's in against his neck, much harder for him to get that. And detail number 5, pinch those knees. Watch what happens to his arm here when I just don't pinch my knees. Look, I'm trying to finish it. His finger can touch me. It's going to be really hard to apply that there. Just by pinching my knees. Look at how much more space I have. Pinch the knees. Alright guys, I hope those details will help your armbar. Let me know what questions you have and give me some ideas. What moves do you want to see fixed on the program? Thanks for watching. You've been watching Professor's Corner. Talk to you later.